The COVID-19 pandemic has brought many industries to their knees, not least air travel, with flights around Europe falling off sharply in the last 2 months. Looking ahead, Ryanair plans to restore some 40% of scheduled flights from July the 1st. But how will that work given the health advice that needs to be adhered to? Well, I'm joined by Ryanair CEO Eddie Wilson. Eddie, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Pat.
Now, let's talk about the 40%. Which routes will be restored and what sort of frequency?
Yeah, Pat, what we're going to do is we're going to restore about 90% of the destinations, but with 40% capacity. That means we won't be flying as frequently to some destinations. So some destinations will have less flights. But all in all, I think about 90% of destinations will be covered.
Now, in terms of deciding where to go, will you be looking at what they've achieved in terms of reducing the incidence of COVID-19? I'm thinking, for example, of Spain and Portugal. I know Portugal very well. I know Spain pretty well. They have a much higher incidence in Spain than they do in Portugal, for instance, of COVID-19.
I think when you're you will probably have, you'll have less frequency to cities, in particular like Madrid and Barcelona. But covering 90% of the destinations is what we're aiming to do. We want to get people back flying. We'll have less frequency. We'll build this up again. We are now in a sort of a post-lockdown era where many countries around Europe are gradually easing restrictions. You know, your previous contributor was on there talking about Paris. But you've got many European countries with children returning to schools. You've got easing of restaurants and bars gradually in Portugal. And I think what we're saying is, look, we need to get people back flying. You can't put flights on sale on the 30th of June to fly on the 1st of July. And we're saying, look, it's 6 weeks out. And our hope is that gradually there will be an easing of restrictions so that people can start to move again. And people have demonstrated, I think it's been a huge surprise to all of us, how compliant people are with the public health initiatives, and that's why we've clearly set them out on our website today. So how people to move through airports, and I'm sure we're going to go into that shortly.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, for example, when you're on the aircraft, what sort of situations will there be? Will you have disinfected the aircraft with, fog technology to make sure that the tabletops and the seat backs and the armrests are free of COVID?
Yeah, I mean, that's already completed, and the disinfectant that we use, speaking to our engineering department yesterday, is more than good for 24 hours in terms of the being able to suppress sort of viruses and cleaning tabletops, all the surfaces on board the aircraft. In addition to that, we have these, the Boeing 737 have these HEPA filters, HEPA, and they are these high-efficiency particle air filtration systems. So they're not like normal air conditioning systems. They actually remove, I think, over 99% of particles from the environment. And, what you're trying to do here is to minimize contact on board between crew and passengers. I suppose constraining the movement on board so you won't be allowed to congregate in the aisles. We'll have new procedures for, how to sequence, I suppose, people who want to use the bathrooms, and minimizing that contact with surfaces on board as you move through the airport so that people can take common sense mitigation of risk.
I note there'll be limited service on board in terms of food. It'll all be pre-packed, and that there will be no cash. It'll be all probably contactless card. That'll be the way it'll be done. What about passengers and masks and crew and masks?
Yeah, I mean, we will be insisting that, that all of our passengers will have a face covering or mask, and our crew will have, cabin crew will have masks. And the idea, I think what we're going to see, and this has happened in Asia as they've sort of returned to some level of normality, whereby, I mean, their flight schedules have returned to in excess of 70% in China. I think the common sense approach is where you're going to have groups of people congregating, whether that's in shopping centres or events or moving on trains or tubes or buses and at airports, well, then I think the common sense initiative is to have masks or face coverings, and we will be insisting on that on board from the 1st of July.
Talking about congestion, priority queues and so on, and then boarding and that middle seat. So how is that going to be handled?
I mean, the middle seat, was the subject of some comment over the last number of weeks, but it's not based on any science, or it doesn't actually enforce the sort of 2 meters of social distancing. It doesn't take account of some aircraft, not Ryanair aircraft, that have got 2 seats on either side of the aisle. I mean, what you've got to do here is to minimise risk. I mean, you're going to have the same difficulties on the Dart, on the buses, on the Lewis, as we get back to some level of normality. And what you can do is the use of face masks. And in the sort of unique environment of an airport, I think you've got an opportunity to stop people entering if you take temperature checks, as they've done in China. And this is seemed to be very effective. Get people on, minimise contact with surfaces, and get them on their way.
And in terms of just boarding people, because the way people queue up behind each other, cheek by jowl, is boarding going to have to change?
Well, I don't what we will do is we will be encouraging people not to queue, and we will be, actively not queuing people into stairwells. I mean, the only sort of advantage at this time is that we're coming into summer, albeit an Irish summer, where you will have the opportunity to people can queue outside, with the weather we're having at the moment. But we're not going to have people queuing at gates. People, if you're in priority, you're going to get on first, and there'll probably be lower load factors to start with as well. But as time moves on, I think people will get used to doing this in a sensible way. I mean, the main thing is to be in the vicinity of the boarding gate, but we won't be encouraging queuing.
Okay, now the question of refunds. So many people, and I could read the morning's worth of texts on refunds and when are they going to get them. Michael O'Leary has said it could take up to 6 months with lower staff numbers now to process all the refunds. What is your bottom line on refunds? If people want cash, will they get it?
The bottom line is, if you've applied for a refund, you will get your money back. Okay, it's as simple as that. And the reason that you're probably getting so many texts on this is that it's a function of, people sometimes underestimate the size of the problem that we're dealing with here. If you look at what the amount of cancelled flights in March, April and May, you're talking somewhere in the region of 25 million passengers. 25 million to get through is just going to take, we are normally geared up to deal with weather events, ATC disruptions, strikes from ATC providers, and you have that capacity that's in place, but that capacity has been seriously depleted because of social distancing. We will get back to it. The reason we put vouchers out there was at least it's got some currency with people who are frequent flyers. Maybe they're going to be able to use that voucher and have some chance to use it. I mean, if you were on a long haul carrier and you've got a refund or you've got a voucher for for €600 or €700, you may not get the opportunity to use it. At least with these with the vouchers, you have some opportunity to use it. If you don't use it, you'll get the money back. And those people, and I really want to say this loud and clear, and I know it's been frustrating for people. If you've applied for a refund, you will get that refund. It's just going to take some time.
You won't be told a voucher for a year and then get the refund. You will get the refund if you've applied.
Those people who reply to the email, they don't have to do anything else. If they have opted for a refund, it is going to take some time, but they will get their money back.
Right. Some quick questions. Can you ask the Ryanair CEO, flights to the Canaries booked for June and July, will they be cancelled and therefore refunded, or will you be flying to the Canaries?
Well, from July, I believe we have, I don't have the full schedule in front of me, but I believe we will be flying to the Canaries as part of this announcement today from the 1st of July. And there's no reason to, for people to doubt that we won't be flying to the Canaries. Yeah.
I'll fire these at you quickly because 10 is approaching. Alan and Wicklow, what about flights to Zadar? They've completely vanished for this year in 2021. Are they finished in Zadar? We now have to fly to Split instead.
I think what had happened was that the Zadar flights were operated by another airline in the Ryanair group, Lauda, and that base, my understanding is that that's not going ahead, and that explains that the aircraft would actually originate from Zadar coming to Dublin.
Someone else, will Lanzarote be open for flights in July? I have Ryanair flights booked, but now I don't want to go.
Well, it's we can't take account of that, Pat. I mean, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get back flying, and if people have a voucher or have opted for a voucher, this is an ideal time to use those vouchers from July onwards.
Another question more broadly about the aviation industry. Those orders for Boeing 737 MAXs, are they still alive, and will they be proceeding?
They are. There are still some issues with the certification of the aircraft with the FAA in the States, and they are working on a return to service, we believe, in the United States sometime towards the end of the year. And when that's certified, then the European agency has to certify that for the aircraft to be delivered. But aircraft deliveries are not top of our agenda at the moment. We're trying to get back flying, and that the MAX will arrive, but we believe it'll be in time for next summer.
Okay, now a final question, and it's about you're already selling tickets online. You can go online and book for 2021. But Michael O'Leary promised the sale of all sales, that prices would be very competitive when you resume flying. People would be wondering now, should I book now? Or will the prices drop dramatically when Ryanair actually start flying?
I think flights from 1999 for the summer season, and particularly as we come out of post-lockdown, is great value. I think you are going to see, as people return to flying, I think you're going to see really deep discounting, particularly this winter, and on city breaks. But I think the fares that we have out there for the height of the summer season are excellent value.
Quick question, last one, just come in. If you fail the temperature check, do you get a refund for the flight? No, you wouldn't. I mean, if the temperature checks would be carried out at the airport, and in those cases, it's like a no-show for a flight for whatever the circumstances are.